flop along Schwartz kind of overplays his flop set to force a fold where it kind of you can kind of argue, oh, it's trying to make it seem like I could get her to call for worse hand, but really it comes across as kind of petty revenge in a sense.
Of course, yeah.
And then Chipgate, but a different kind of Chipgate, French fries as Chip's gates, basically.
So weird.
The weirdest thing. So Michelle orders some French fries and eats them for hands, and Marquis and Scott Montgomery kind of take issue with it, but there's kind of this classic kind of sitcom-y thing where Scott tries to say, like, silverware, and she says, what? Like, she misses it, so the whole flow of the back and forth kind of gets missed. I think it's kind of funny.
Yeah, it's just weird. Like, just French fries just all of a sudden appearing out of nowhere, number one. Like, where did she get these French fries from? And number two, like, of all the things that you can choose to eat, why would you choose French fries? Just why? I mean, they make good points, right? You don't know where other people's hands have been. You've been touching cards, you're touching chips, you're exchanging things with other players. Like, why would you do that?
Michelle then wins the first hand after this conversation with a rivered pair of aces against Marquis Queens, where she kind of gives away maybe some value by saying, I gave you odds, buddy.
Right.
And then he says, powered by French fries. Thanks to the French fries.
Total tilt. Totally trying to tilt. It's great.
So we mentioned how this is 19 episodes of main event action. It's not until halfway into episode 17 that we finally see the eventual winner, Peter Eastgate, in a hand.
He's here, guys. Nice man.
It's unbelievable.
Crazy.
So, and he loses at the hand, too.
To Demidov.
The first two hands our eventual winner is in the coverage is a loss. One to Demidov and one to Bishop. Bishop, we do learn about his dad's recent passing, so that kind of gives some pathos to his main event run. Yeah. It'll be more relevant in the next episode when he talks to his dad. But for now, we do learn about that story. Yeah. Brendan Cantu makes a ill-advised 3-bet with 10-5 offsuit. And then an even more ill-advised call of Dean Hamrick's all-in of aces. And Cantu is trying to defend the action with, oh, well, if you didn't have aces, then I can probably get the work. It's just unbelievable.
It's just, I mean, he sits there for like 3 minutes. He's like, I'm going to play some blackjack. You know, if I call you and I beat you, man, it's going to be the worst beat you've ever had. And then he calls. It's like...
So I read in the blog, so he tanked for 5 minutes.
Oh, my God.
You think eventually, you know what? I'll just save myself $1.5 million in full. So he gives up half his chips of 10-5, somehow flops a pair, and rivers 2 pair, but the board had paired before that, so he doesn't win the hand. But, I mean, Cantu, what are you doing, man?
Horrible. Just... That might be the worst call I've ever seen, frankly.
Well, now, as awful a call that was, one of the worst all-ins by somebody has to be Scott Montgomery in a hand against Paul Snead.
This is it.
Because Montgomery makes it this insane all-in where Snead only has to put in another $1.5 million for like a 9 million chip pot. So really the pot odds are, I mean, there's not very many hands he's going to be folding anyway.
Yeah.
And somehow Scott Montgomery hits a miracle 2-outer on the river to win an 11.5 million chip pot. Although to get there, we had to go through some more clock gates with Michelle calling the clock on Paul Snead.
Oh my God, this hand is just one of the most classic hands. I mean, Snead's trying to get Montgomery to talk, and Montgomery gives one of the worst lines. Like, I would insta-call after this. He says, I have the best hand, but I don't want you to call. Who says that?
You said you got outs. I don't want you to call. I mean,
yeah, like,
fold. I mean,
I would insta-call the second I hear that. And then Tiffany Michelle calls the clock. It's like so weird.
Now, Snead loses the majority of his chips, and he's literally gone the very next hand in like 20th place.
Yeah, and Montgomery's laughing at the end after he gets the lucky river, and like says this weird needle line, like Snead's complaining like this guy put in 6 million with ace 4, and then Montgomery just says, I thought it was aces. It's such a weird.
That's a funny line.
Needle. It's funny.
Because a 4 and an ace can kind of be, the 4 of the ace shape.
It's funny. I just think it's mean.
I agree.
It's really mean.
Agree. But with 20 players left at this point, after Sneed and Cantu both bust, Cantu busts and is flipped to Peter Eastgate, and Eastgate's first televised win of a hand. Of the top 10, 9 of that top 10 will be at the final table, which is a surprise because how often have we seen with 18 left, 20 left, maybe 5 or 6 maybe?
Yeah.
And usually one of the chip winners kind of falls from grace. But in this case, the only player to miss from the top 10, the guy in second place at this point, Mr. Joe Bishop.
12.7 million gone.
So the episode ends with 18 left, and it moves swiftly into day 7, part 2, episode 18. And with the top 9 at this point, 8 of the final 9 make the final table. This is primarily the Bishop versus Chino show.
Yep.
Joe Bishop gets up to 14 million with a huge making of quads against Chino.
Yep.
And then with the same hand, pocket sixes, he makes a great call on an 8-high flop against Chino's all-in with king 9. And Chino hits a miracle 6-outer on the river and, of course, celebrates, yeah! That's how we do! How's he calling with 2 6s? I mean, it was a great call, but there's some needle action in there.
Yeah, and Joe Bishop's trying to talk to his dad, and he there's some shot of him just like walking off from the table, like where is he?
I mean, he has like 11 million chips still. It's not like he's out or anything. He still had a healthy stack. And ironically, in the first third of this episode, we don't actually see the first handful of eliminations from the final 18 down to like 15 or 14.
Yeah.
So I think Michelle does bust to Peter Eastgate's. She completely misplays top pair 3-handed. It's just painful. And then that brings us down to the final 13 with all those sort of skipped eliminations.
Mm-hmm.
Nick Solinsky kind of bluffs off his life to Dennis Phillips.
Yep.
That would be a recurring theme for the rest of the tournament, for sure.
Yep.
We get a little bit more insight into Dennis Phillips being a trucker.
Mm-hmm.
And kind of just his career before the main event. He kind of plays that older, non-professional, average Joe lifestyle occupation kind of role in the field.
Yeah, we'll get that with Darvin Moon more next year, but this year, yeah, definitely.
Rest in peace, Darvin Moon.
Yes.
And then again, another noteworthy Chino Ream moment against Demidov, a pocket 9s against pocket 10s pre-flop all-in fest for 18 million chips. Chino just kind of flat out says, I have a big pair. I don't know what to do. I call. And then the cards go in the back and he goes, woo! Just a scream into the crowd even though it's...
His voice breaks, like, it's just so weird.
And then, of course, it's the most unlucky flop of all time because Chino mixes sets as Demidov flops a straight flush draw. And Demidov takes down a huge pot that would kind of carry him into the rest of the proceedings of the main event.
Just crazy.
And this is all of 12 players left. I mean, this is the nitty-gritty. This is the the key juncture of what's going to determine your fate for the rest of the tournament.
Yeah, so much pathos and crazy.
But then Joe Bishop goes way too nutty with Ace Queen against Suharto's pocket kings on a queen high flop. I mean, he was obviously a little tilted from his loss to Chino, but I mean, you just can't do that.
Why would you be tilted? You have so many chips. You still have a shot. Why would you be tilted?
Now, he does give a pretty funny line. Is there a queen on that board when Suharto tries to guess Ace Queen? Because he could be Ace Queen, obviously.
Right.
And I read in the blog, though, the very next hand at that table after Bishop doubles up Suharto is he doubled up Kelly Kim.
Oh, okay.
So when he's down all in on the very next hand, with the crappy ace, you have a crappy ace? He had lost 2/3 of his stack again.
Oh, that's a shame.
And busting out Kelly Kim. Doubling out Kelly Kim. So Chino gets the final dagger in Bishop's back, busting him in 11th place.
Yep.
And we get our informal final table of 10 players trying to get to that last spot. And again, this is the most stressful part of the whole tournament besides the bubble.
Oh, of course.
For the individual. Not collectively speaking, it's probably more stressful than
for the individual. Oh my god. Yeah. If you're there, your part is just beating so quickly.
So the bubble began at 11:34 p.m. on that day in Las Vegas. The Kelly Kim had 4.4 million chips. Craig Marquis had 12 million chips. Dean Hamrick had 12.5 million chips.
Wow! Oh my God!
So when you just think about their journeys over the next 2 hours, that's kind of how things went. So Dean Hamrick, I mean, he doesn't really do anything wrong per se. He makes a great call of pocket queens against Craig Marquis, who had lost about half his chips, a little more than half his chips up till that point at the bubble. Kelly Kim had been playing super tight when he goes all in later. That was the first time he had played in that first hour and a half of the bubble play. So Dean Hamrick, I mean, he doubles up Craig Marquis on the river, but the facial expressions of both of them after that hand are just priceless.
Yeah.
Marquis kind of just raises his eyebrows and smiles, whereas Dean Hamrick just kind of shakes his head he just can't believe it that he just can't pull this off.
Right, and Kelly Kim just looks so happy.
And then so unhappy.
It's so crazy. Yeah, it's hilarious.
Yeah. The end of this episode does introduce the new beige chips, which will be kind of the highest denomination chips for this tournament.
Yep.
And Dean Hamrick, I mean, I always root for twins in the main event. He suffers from an unfortunate ace-jack against pocket queen situation and busts in 10th place. He's a nice guy. He didn't seem like he was...
yeah, of course, yeah.
Seemed pretty likable. And from there, we were left with our final 9.
Yep.
And we've talked about in the past how well we know the final 9.
Yeah.
I mean, we can agree that we know literally zero about Peter Eastgate.
Oh, God,
We saw 3 hands from him in 18 episodes.
No segment cutting away, him talking about his life or anything.
Now,
nothing.
The majority of the rest of them did get a segment or two where they kind of would do an interview, but I didn't feel we knew them very well still.
Yeah, I mean, Phillips, we got it.
Besides Chino Ream, who got the most screen time of everybody by far, personality-wise, I mean, Phillips... Okay, I guess maybe number 2. Maybe number 2 on the list.
Who else? Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, Marquis and Montgomery, their table talk definitely added to their screen presence. But I would say besides those 4, we really didn't know everybody else.
I will give a brownie point to Elon Schwartz. He mentioned in his segment just playing poker with a guy named Fat Nick, which is just something out of central casting or something. So I'll give him a brownie point there. But yeah, Suharto we know nothing about personally. Eastgate we know nothing about. Demidov we get a little bit of his play, but nothing in terms of his personality. He's Russian. That's about it. Yeah. I forgot half of the final table lists going into this coverage, and I was like, oh yeah, he makes the final table. Yeah. The
actual chip breakdown, Kelly Kim, by virtue of being the short stacker's 10-handed play beginning and folding numerous hands, he began with a quarter of the stack that the 8th place stack Craig Marquis had, and then you kind of had for the top 8, you kind of had 4, 35, 40 big blind stacks.
Yeah.
And then the bigger stacks, Dennis Phillips being the chip winner of 26 million, which is just under 20% of the chips, which
crazy.
Is a lot of chips, but it's also not as substantial a lead that someone like a Greg Raymer or Jamie Gold would have.
Very true.
He was only 2 million ahead of Ivan Demidov, so really you could, one hand would change the chip leader, which would happen actually going forward.
Exactly, yeah.
But and the blinds were, I believe, 120 and 240K for a brief moment before going to the 150, 300K. So
yeah,
our boy Chino in 7th in chips, only 10 million though, so not quite comfortable, but not quite uncomfortable either.
Yep. So in the spirit of the November 9, we're going to stop this podcast, and 4 months later we'll fill you in on the rest of it. So
yes, we'll see you in 4 months, and just kidding.
I'm just kidding. Yeah, November
we bluffed
9,
you. We bluffed you.
We are finally here, I guess. What are your thoughts on the November 9, Ben? What do you think in terms of the general concept?
I mean, I understand wanting to be able to advertise and build up this event like like the World Cup of Poker or something.
Yeah.
And it does. I see that if I don't think the players really were against it. So really, if they're not against it, then why should we be against it?
I think some of the players spoke out against it.
I suppose, but it also means that poker popularity was still on the rise, and they wanted to give more of a event quality to it, and it definitely changed things up. I mean, for the first number of decades of the tournament. They had kept things mostly the same, and I think they would eventually reverse the number 9 mechanic from the tournament, so they let it have its time, and then they moved it back. So I think no harm, no foul for it.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, as you mentioned, yeah, advertising's nice, but I feel like the players like Chino Reem who have connections to the big professionals like Matusow and Hellmuth and so on, they have an unfair advantage because they have 4 months to train with these big professionals, whereas somebody like Dennis Phillips who works a day job and doesn't have those connections, I feel like that's an unfair advantage.
I mean, that's true, but I mean, you could also work yourself into bad position. Some players come in with the wrong form of attack, Mark Newhouse, and I feel that it's a chance for people to maybe get some more sponsoring money to.
I agree with that.
And so I think it's all unfair. It's all fair.
Yeah, I mean, for most of the people who make the main event final table, this is their career highlight. So a lot of the guys who make the final table don't ever make a final table at WSOP ever again. Yeah. So it's nice that they have an opportunity to take advantage of their fortune.
You've heard of 15 minutes of fame. This is really 4 months of fame.
Yeah, I know, but I just feel like it's an unfair advantage for the players with more resources. They can train on it. And yeah, I mean, I think it should be. I mean, from a purist element, sorry to say this, but I feel like if it's a tournament, have one day break between the final 3 tables and the final table, sure, but 4 months, I mean, you should just play.
But how often have you heard players like John Sin or Tony Miles saying they just didn't feel physically healthy after a week of play, and they could have benefited from some time off to recuperate.
That's true, but it's a tournament. It's about endurance. Endurance is a key element of it. You take that element away when you have a 4-month break.
I mean, if I was one of those 9 players, I wouldn't mind. I'd be happy with it. So
yeah, I mean, I wouldn't. I don't mind it either. Like, it's not a huge deal to me, but I am kind of glad that we went back to the traditional model. Mm-hmm. 1 day break, fine, but 4 months, I just think is too much.
Well, I mean, I we'll agree to disagree.
Sure, fair enough. Yeah, no problem.
So the actual final table episode is one big episode, an hour and a half long. Mm-hmm. There's a pretty well-filmed introduction of all the players kind of spinning this dark background, and I think that was pretty cool. It was well shot.
Yeah, very atmospheric. That they're in the darkness.
The thing is, but by showing each person's face, it really undercut how little we knew about many of them.
Very true.
And I mean, we knew some of their poker pretty well, their table dynamic pretty well, but their stories, who they were, we didn't know nearly as well.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
Chino flies in 300 friends to the final table, which is...
You mean Phillips?
Oh, Chino too.
Oh, Chino flew in a bunch of friends too?
Yeah, Chino, they dropped that at the very beginning.
Oh, yeah.
He flew in 300. I wonder if that's just poor money management on display, or did they fly themselves in? I don't know.
No, I mean... A bunch of Kelly Kim supporters were there too, even though the guy had $2 million.
Yeah. No, Dennis Phillips, he had a whole wave of people with the same outfit on. That was hilarious. The hat, the shirt.
Someone brought in a truck horn attached to a battery.
That was fun to see.
Yeah, crazy.
But Dennis Phillips, he drops 20 million chips before the first knockout.
Yeah, crazy.
26 million, dribbles into 6 million, just for some very overly ambitious, overly aggressive play.
Yeah.
And guys like Alon Schwartz and Demidov take prime advantage of that and siphon off the majority of those chips from Phillips.
Yeah, I mean, Schwartz doesn't really do much with his chips afterward. I mean, he kind of just sits there and folds his way into 4th place. Demidov's a little bit more aggressive on it. We get this weird segment from Phillips talking about his lucky coin, which a friend took through World War II and another friend took through Vietnam. And they gave it to him so that he can win a poker tournament. As you do.
Exactly. It's totally going to work.
Yeah.
I mean, this episode it's really the Alon Schwartz, Ivan Demidov show for the first segment.
And Phillips losing.
Phillips losing, but they take front stage. Schwartz hits 40 million chips at one point.
Yeah.
While they're still 9-handed, so that's like a, Jamie Gold and Greg Green were stacked.
Right. Yeah.
At this point, Jerry Yang after a little bit. Kelly Kim, I mean, he, much like at the bubble at the final table, he folds his way till he reaches his breaking point. He goes all in blind with 2 big blinds against Demidov. And he somehow wakes up with kings against 10-7, which is I mean, not 10, King 10.
Yeah.
And then still somehow has to suffer a turn card sweat, which is just, again, his reaction is just hilarious. I mean, he's just trying to knock a ninth.
Yeah, Kelly Kim gets points from me just for his reactions when they're 10-handed, when they're 9-handed. He's just like, it's so adorable.
Absolutely. And then a later hand, he attempts to double against Chino Ring, but they have both Ace King, where Chino flops a flush draw, and then Kelly Kim's like, oh no! And then he somehow sweats out a chop pot to win a couple hundred from the Blind Nannies.
I bet money a Korean wins the sandwich. Great line.
Absolutely. So, and then after that hand shows, we do see Dennis Phillips doubling up against Chino with queens against Chino's jacks, but Phillips admits if I had 9 10 would have done the same thing. So Chino kind of unlucky, but we're at this point 1/3 into the episode with 0 bust outs. And half the table has not played a hand.
Yeah, crazy, huh?
Marquis, Montgomery, Eastgate, and Suharto not shown in a single hand 1/3 into an hour-and-a-half long episode.
Crazy.
But in Eastgate's case, he actually just stays at like 18 to 20 million the entire time until the very end.
Yeah.
Consistently, whereas Marquis dribbles away from his 10 million to start the final table. We do see one of the best folds of the whole tournament. I think it's arguably better than the folding than day one with the Full House versus Full House.
Really?
Where Schwartz folds the second nut flush against Davidoff's nut flush.
That's true. Yeah, that's a good fold.
He folds to a bet on the river. It wasn't like he wasn't raised on the river. He wasn't all in on the river. It was just a 4 million chip bet on the river. It's an unbelievable fold.
It is a great fold. Yeah.
And Alon Schwartz was playing high level poker to start off this final table for sure.
For 30 minutes. And then, it just appears.
And then Craig Marquis busts Busto Rooney.
Yep, runner.
Runner again. It's kind of karmic blowback from his Dean Hamrick bust double-up situation. Kelly Kim, after folding his way to the final 8, we don't even get the pleasure of seeing his bust-up hand. I couldn't believe that.
Yeah, they cut back from break and he's gone.
And it's just really a big letdown, honestly.
Yeah, that's a shame. I hate that.
And then Suharto donks off 2/3 of his stack with ace high on the flop. Which, I mean, again, that's the impression that we're going to get of his final table play because that's one of only 2 hands we see him in the entire time.
Yeah, we barely see him throughout the coverage as a whole. He's just not in there.
He's kind of like the Daniel Bergstore of 05.
Yeah, I mean, they talk up because he's in a cat like, oh, he's kind of like Chris Moneymaker, but we don't see anything from him, so we can't have a good comparison. Yeah.
We get a pretty weak sauce flushies segment for the Mets. I mean, these have gotten worse each time they've been put in. The best first, the most eye-catching, the baddest bad beat, which really isn't even assigned appropriately because that's just referring to putting with Phil Hellmuth. It doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, they just need to fill airtime. Instead of that, show a hand of somebody doing something.
Like Peter Eastgate. We finally see him 50 minutes in a hand. We see him busting Chino, who had just doubled up a short stack into a slightly less short stack. Chino, unfortunately, busted 7th place. Never really had much of a run of it.
Yeah, never really got anything going at all.
Reminds me a bit of the next year's 7th place finisher.
Oh, yeah. We'll get to him.
Anyway, and then 1 hour in this episode, we finally see Scott Montgomery in a hand where he ends up busting Suharto.
Well, didn't he bust Greg Marquis? Didn't he do the whole, I need a 5-minute break, I need to change my pants thing?
Oh, okay, it's second hand.
Yeah.
Well, in any case, all we see is Montgomery busting out players, so you think, okay, this is great, right? Show me a few more hands, right? He donks off 25 million chips to Davidoff with ace freaking 9.
Ugh, crazy.
I mean, then again, it's kind of in character given his bad play with Paul Snead.
Yeah, that's true. That is true.
And then in short form, after he hands 50 million chips to Davidoff, he goes all in with ace 3 suited against Mr. Peter Eastgate and ends up busting on the river on a 1-outer. This was the year of the 1 and 2 outers.
Yep, and Dennis Phillips makes a point to mention that he folded a 6, goes through the muck pile, and turns over the 6 that he had folded, which I don't know if that's a needle or not. It's just weird.
It's brutal.
It's just weird, yeah.
But $3 million is pretty good for 5th place, though.
Yeah, Montgomery took it well.
Especially when you consider that later main events, 5th place would be winning a lot less than $3 million. Like John Hess got like $2.6 million.
Did he get 6th or 5th? Did Suharto bust in 6th?
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
And then we finally see Eastgate in his segments, but it's one of the most bland, uninteresting segments that we've seen. He just talks about, I could be the youngest, okay. Money, okay. And it's like...
There is one funny thing. I think they mentioned like how he could be the youngest player ever. And they have the clip of Phil Hellmuth saying, this idiot from Northern Europe. And then it cuts to a clip of Peter Eastgate. He's kind of got this like disgusted look on his face as though Hellmuth was talking to him. I thought that was clever.
Okay, that's true. I'll give you that. I'll give you that. But just as we say how Montgomery likes to give away chips with bad hands, Mr. Alon Schwartz, who after rising to 40 million chips, kind of bled his way down to like 16 million or so.
Yeah.
He goes all in one of the worst time bluffs in final table history, where Eastgate had river to full house and obviously gets called, and Alon Schwartz, who played very solid poker up until this point, gone in 4th place just like that.
Yep. And then Phillips is gone right after him.
And I mean, arguably an even worse all-in maybe. I mean, you could justify Alon Schwartz's play maybe to some degree, but Dennis Phillips, all-in of 10-9 on a jack-high flop and no draw.
Ugh.
In 3rd place. Granted, he wasn't short stack, but Eastgate's path to the win was paved in the least difficult to walk across pavement, because he was handed stack after stack up by this point.
Yeah, pretty much.
Heads-up play does begin relatively close in chips, especially compared to the last handful of years where one guy just had like 8-1, 7-1, 6-1 chip lead.
Right.
But after Davidoff bluffs off a large stack of chips in one hand, we jump way ahead to the final hand of the whole tournament.
Yep.
So again, our supposedly official formula of you show one hand where the runner-up wins a hand and the winner wins after that.
Yeah.
We again break this up. Arguably, it's not the formula anymore.
Yeah, that's true, yeah.
But Davidoff, with 2-pair, unfortunately shoves all in against a straight that Eastgate turned, while on the same card had given Davidoff 2-pair.
Yeah, just crazy.
But to Eastgate's credit, as he's arguably the most composed, chill winner of all time. His reaction to the win is the most boss level reaction, besides maybe Merson, where he literally he turns over the cards, Davidoff stares at the hand I lost. Eastgate takes his 2 chips he had to the side, neatly stacks on top of his big stack, and then stands up slowly and turns into his crowd, and then they engulf them. I mean, it was
so
just
boss, yeah,
so amazing.
That's great.
So I mean, it's the best reaction to a win of all time. I can't believe. I wonder what would it take to really get him excited. I don't know. I mean, he literally busts 3 players in a row, and doesn't react once.
It was $9.1 million. I mean, I do like Merson just shoving his supporters away so he can give Jesse a hug. I do like that, but yeah,
it's up there.
It's up there.
Top 1, top 2.
Top 2. Yeah, top 2 for sure.
We didn't get another kind of awkward country song music montage.
Yeah, I kind of just skipped this over.
I mean, at least give me that old "Tell Me Why I'm So Crying Over You" song.
Oh yeah,
that's so much better.
Yeah.
But and ironically, the breakdown of the final placings of these players, the top 4 chip stacks all made the top 5, and then the bottom 3 were all gone first.
Yeah.
The bottom 4 were all gone.
Yeah, not too.
It's a pretty textbook kind of finish. The low stacks go out first, the big stacks hang in there. Really, from the final 2 tables onward.
Yep,
that was the case.
And Peter Eastgate went on to win 6 more bracelets, and he'll be in the Hall of Fame next year, as we all know.
If only, man.
Hey, look, you win $9.1 million, taking the money and running, no problem.
I mean, Eastgate would infamously kind of retire from poker after making a deep run in the main event in 2009. The following year.
He sold his bracelet to charity and raised something like $110,000 for UNICEF.
He seems like a very chill guy. I think he probably held on to his money, and I'm happy for him.
He took
for life.
Yeah.
youngest winner of all time, most consistent winner we've seen.
Yeah.
Very steady, even though he lost the first two hands we saw on day 7
Mm-hmm.
or day 6 or something. He played very well. Just wasn't much oomph or screen presence that he had that a guy like Gold or even Jerry Yang brought to the table.
I mean, I don't know.
But he played lights out in the back half of this final table, so
of course,
props to him. But I think we can say this is the least focused on winner of all time in the main events.
Yeah, I mean, we know nothing about his personality pretty much
or his story or anything.
Yeah, he's 22, the youngest guy to win. He's from, Denmark? I don't remember. Norway? Yeah. Which one? Up there, Northern Europe.
He's from Denmark, man.
Yeah, I mean, maybe the language barrier is an issue there. I don't know.
So while he's a great player, he sounds like a great guy, but he's not a great TV character.
He's not personable. Yeah.
But I think, generally speaking, I think this main event had some of the best characters.
Yes.
And enough screen time to really let them breathe
to
give their journeys through this tournament meaning.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I mean, it's nice that, even in the first episode, we get Chino Ree, we get Scott Montgomery. So before, we've had a lot of problems where the November 9, they just pop up out of nowhere, the final 9, and we don't get a good sense of their stories. There's a little bit more storytelling in there. The players who don't make the 9, but make deep runs, we do get a good sense of who their personalities are. We know who Tiffany Michelle is. We know who Joe Bishop is.
Yes.
For better or for worse, we know who they are.
And now, while there was definitely a slog in the day 2 and day 3 episodes, I think on average this year's coverage worked out at a pretty high level.
Mm-hmm.
Day 5 and day 6 are just so iconic to me.
Oh yeah.
I mean, some of the most memorable stuff, and obviously even some of the day 4 hands have lasted the YouTube test of time.
Yeah,
13 years later. So
of course,
is it my favorite year of all time? I can't quite say that, but I do think it makes top 3.
I would say so, yeah. I mean, let's see. Would my number 1 still be 05? I guess
I agree.
I think my number 1 would be 05. What did I have next? Did I have 07 next? I don't remember. Yeah, it's in my top 3.
So my top 3, about thinking about it too deeply.
Yeah, it's a little uneven. I would have liked more information about Eastgate and Demidov. That would have been nice.
Mm-hmm.
Enjoyable.
Absolutely.
Enjoyable.
And especially for a year that coverage-wise was kind of stagnant in its changes from 07.
Mm-hmm.
Again, we're winding down the end of the classic WSOP era. 09 will be, again, kind of more of the same for the most part, broadcast-wise.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I still follow a lot of these characters to this day. Phil Hellmuth killing it right now in the 2021 World Series, 2 final tables, and another deep run as well. Matusow has been playing in some of the Omaha limit events, and has been making some decent progress there. So, a lot of the players in this coverage will still be relevant to modern viewers today.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think important to note that the main event coming up in 1 month, and I will be going to Las Vegas for the main event.
Mm-hmm.
I'll be on the rail of a close friend of mine playing in the main event on day 1D, and so if anybody listening keep an eye out for me. I'll be the tall, skinny guy in the background, and it'll be exciting to be experiencing this main event not just from the TV screen but from firsthand. And just kind of, this is the last year the main event will be held at the Rio.
Yep.
So it's kind of the end of an era. So I felt it was only appropriate for me to be there. For the since we've been watching since the start of this Rio main event era, why not be there for the end of it?
Yeah, I will not be there because I do not have paid time off, but Ben does, so he will be there. Yeah. But we'll try to keep our coverage at roughly the regular schedule. I mean, Ben will be there for hopefully
a long time,
a
long whole week, hopefully.
Yeah, I mean, Ben and I know the friend who will be playing in the main event, and I think he's got a decent shot to maybe make the money.
We don't know how big the main event will be. We saw it. We don't. The numbers of the pandemic will make things hard to predict.
Mm-hmm.
But you know what? I'm confident that whatever happens, it'll be fun to be on the field per se of the main event, and hopefully get more people to share some stories to share on the podcast, and hopefully just kind of build this understanding of the poker world.
Yeah, I mean, as we said this before, if you ever play with either of us while we're online playing poker, you can always say hello, ask us questions, share the podcast with your friends, whatever you'd like. If you ever see any of us, feel free to say hi. Ben's first vacation to Vegas, I will hopefully go next year. But if you ever see us out in the world, you can also say hi. So, yeah, this is exciting.
I think that concludes it. Again, it was a very memorable main event that if you maybe skip the day 2 episodes, it's pretty much very high quality all the way through otherwise.
Yep. And we're on to the 09 episode.
Where the supposed best player of all time makes another historic run at the main event, and we'll see if that run lives up to the hype it had at the time, or if maybe it was overblown. But
or some kid wins the tournament again,
or some trucker or logger, I don't know, some other guy makes a deep run at it. Probably not, but you never know. It's the main event.
All right.
And that's it from Two Fish Hill Podcast. We'll see you next time.
Take care, y'all.